Hey, cycling friends. James with Team Fitness Strong here with a little impromptu live stream this evening. I wanted to bring something to the community's attention. Um, I have been, as you know, doing some e-racing on Zwift and have been involved in the Fusion ECT Racing League most recently. And it came out of that I discovered something that actually shocked me about Zwift and about my training, and it really rocked me the last couple of days as to the implications of it. So I felt compelled to share it with you all because of the significance of it and how much it may impact others who, like me, do a lot of our training in Zwift. Now, what I'm talking about today is the use of my smart trainer in connection with Zwift. Now, my smart trainer is the Elite Diretto. And I'm going to bring that up on the screen here. And if you're not familiar with this model, it is in the mid-range market for trainers. So it is a direct drive trainer. It is not in direct competition with the Wahoo Kicker. It's more of that mid-range market. But yet, the Diretto claims a very accurate measurement of 2%, with some other very impressive figures here on its literature online. Going down here, the reason for its accuracy is because it has an optical torque sensor. And that's something that sets it apart from others that use logarithms to calculate power, or others that may use a strain gauge based torque sensor. So with that said, I trusted the Diretto to be extremely accurate. And in fact, it says here further down that it's certified by Zwift. So I'm thinking this is the perfect combination for me. Going through some additional literature here, I found on Elite's website where it talks about the optical torque sensor. Now, being an engineering geek, I love getting technical facts. So just really diving into this optical torque sensor and see its unique properties to find out why is it so accurate. And reading about it, I won't bore you with the details, but one of the things that came to light in my research on that is where it says here that the temperature of the trainer doesn't affect power output accuracy. So I took that to mean, and I took all of these statements to mean, that it doesn't need calibration. And sure enough, when I got my trainer in, I went through the manual meticulously for my setup, and nowhere in this manual does it tell you how to calibrate the trainer. Now, you can see where I'm going with this, but I've even found here others in the community stating that, according to this one individual, that Elite says you don't need to calibrate. It's more of a troubleshooting tool than a calibration need. That they've owned a Diretto for over a year and their calibration number has never changed. It has to do with how the optical torque sensor on the Diretto works versus a traditional strain gauge. So in light of all this, I have felt that my numbers on Zwift were accurate, perhaps even more accurate than the Stages power meter on my own bike. And so I have been using the internal optical torque sensor in the Diretto as my primary power measuring tool. I found it to be accurate. I found it to be more reliable than my Stages power meter, where when I first started switching over to a direct drive trainer, I had thought about using my Stages power meter as the primary source, but I found that my Stages meter would have these horrible dropouts, and I would lose every time. Especially, it seemed to drop out in the worst moments too. Doesn't it always happen that way? Now, I will say, to the Diretto's credit, I have not seen dropouts come from the Diretto during any events. However, it is through my experience with the Fusion ECT Racing League, where they require a secondary source, that has caused me to have some concerns. And here's why. Because the fact that they require that second data source in order to be able to be eligible for that podium spot, I went ahead and did dual recording on my 2 races that I've entered so far. And some of you may recall the 6 train race that we did in New York last week. I've got that information here on my screen, as well as the Stages power meter information for that. And it was, in my experience, after downloading that fit file from my Garmin Connect account and uploading it here into the analysis portal on Zwift Power, that I discovered some very telling information. And by the way, this used to be called transparency. In fact, just up until yesterday, I think it was called transparency. I think that Zwift Power more appropriately has named it analysis. I think that's a better term to use to help people understand its function. And it is a really good tool. Let me just show you here what it can do for you. So when I've uploaded my power information from my Stages meter / Garmin head unit, this is what I got. I got some correlation data between all of the metrics that I've been recording, which is power, heart rate, and cadence. And it produced a really nice report. See, this power information is not too useful in this particular form, but extremely useful in this form. This is a comparison of the power curves between my Stages meter, which is in black, and my Zwift, or the Diretto, which is in blue. And you can see that aside from my sprints, which have been hamstrung to a certain extent by the Diretto, it seems to have a very flat profile on the high-end power. The low-end power, however, was consistently higher, and not just by a little bit. If you look at my 20-minute power numbers, and I don't know if you can see that with the resolution of the screen, my Stages power meter during that event recorded 228 watts. Zwift, however, recorded 266 watts. That is over 30 watts difference. In fact, it's closer to 40 watts. It's like 38 watts difference. That's huge. That's game changing. That's actually category changing almost in Zwift. So this is huge. And I compared that across my power profile, and it was consistent. And it actually, as you can see, the differences got greater as you went down to more like your 1 minute and your 30-second power. So these numbers were very, very different, and it confused me. I had thought perhaps maybe there is some differential going on. The fact that my Stages power meter is a left-only crank measuring device, and then what it does is it doubles that number to produce a total power output, versus the Diretto, which is measuring both sides. So if I have any kind of differential in terms of my right versus my left power, I could see why these numbers might be off a little bit. But 38 watts is quite a bit. So I decided to go ahead and look into this whole training thing, this calibration thing again, because I wanted to be 100% certain that I am racing legit. I don't want to be racing in any way that is providing me an unfair advantage over other competitors. So I went and looked into the calibration issue, and since the time that I originally looked at the Diretto, there has now come some forum conversations online that tell you how to calibrate it. So I went ahead and I checked the e-training app out, found buried deep into the app the calibration setting, and I went ahead and took some time to go ahead and calibrate it. Now, take a look at the difference on my next race as a result. So my last race that I raced, which was that time trial, for those of you who were with me on that, you know that my numbers were lower for that event. And in fact, the numbers do tell exactly that. You can see here's my power profiles between my Stages power meter and the Diretto. And once again, you see that high-end power is a little off. We don't actually have any sprinting going on here, so you never really get into the super high-end power. But for my 20-minute power, there was a much better correlation during this particular event. 226 watts on my Stages power meter and 239 on the Diretto. So that is within reason. It's only a 13-watt difference. So I think that can be explained by the differential between my right leg and my left leg. So I feel this is actually probably accurate, and this probably accurately represents where I am as a cyclist today. Now, what does that mean for me? It really shocks me and it hurts me because all summer long I have been thinking that I have been making so much progress in my training and seeing it reflected in my numbers on Zwift, and now finding out that those numbers are essentially worthless. And unfortunately, those numbers propagate from Zwift into all my other connected accounts too. So my Garmin account is messed up and my Strava account is messed up. My personal best power numbers in both of those accounts are off, and I really don't know what they are at the moment. I don't know how much I've improved over the course of this year at the moment because of the fact that these numbers, these peak numbers, have been essentially wrong. And so it's been kind of discouraging for me. I've had to take some time and to rethink a lot of things, namely my Zwift e-racing. I'm a B category rider, and I think I graduated into the B category as a result of some of these numbers being off. And it's going to take me forever, it seems like forever, to be competitive at a podium level in the B category now as a result of this shift change in now the way my trainers measuring power. And because of that, it's a disappointment to me. It can be a disappointment to those of you who have followed me and have watched my Zwift races. So I'm not really sure where it's going to go from here in terms of that. If anything, I'm probably more of a high-end C category rider. I'd probably be very competitive in some C races, probably be winning some gold cups a lot in the C category. But that's not where I want to be. I've been there. I've already done that. I've been racing in the B category now all season, all year, and here I am now feeling like I've taken a big backward step, almost as if I've had a big wreck and I've got to start my training all over again. I don't know. It almost feels like that. But I say this because, and if those of you who are involved with Zwift or are with Zwift, I really think we need to have some unity in the Zwift world, especially when you have trainers that are claiming to be Zwift certified. You have to have, I think, some level of compatibility across different models, and it really has to be unified in the software application. It's all software. That's where the issue lies. So I think Zwift probably needs to take the lead on this, because if e-racing is going to be really legit, I think Zwift needs to get on this and find a way to do a calibration procedure automatically. I mean, let's face it. You don't go out to your car in the morning and have to set the timing belt or have to set the oxygen sensors, sensing how much O2 is in them. These things are calibrated out of the box and they automatically maintain themselves. Why don't we have that in the Zwift world? Why don't we have a way for Zwift to do the calibration on every startup, every time you start a workout session or every time you start a Zwift session, that a calibration procedure is done, if that's even possible? Or maybe as part of your account, it keeps track of how long it's been since you've calibrated, and it prompts you to do a calibration procedure. Yeah, it might be 10 minutes of inconvenience, but let me tell you, I'd rather have had 10 minutes of inconvenience when I first pulled this thing out of the box than to have 7 months of bad numbers and this disappointment. So Zwift, if you're hearing, let's see if you can rise to the occasion and find some way to level the playing field, because if it's happening to me, it's happening to a lot of other people, I'm sure, too. I mean, let's face it, even the manufacturer doesn't tell you how to calibrate their own trainers sometimes. So you can't expect the end users to figure it out by osmosis. So I'm hoping that maybe this will result in some positive changes that will make esports and e-racing on Zwift even better than it already is. Hey, I really commend the Fusion ECT folks for picking up on perhaps that nuance in racing and requiring that second level of power validation and in real life validation. I think we need to take it to the next level and just make sure that the primary source is good to begin with. And then all of this other, I won't call it nonsense, but validation, additional overhead behind the scenes would become unnecessary. But that being said, hey, I appreciate y'all. I hope you do, guys, you do hang with me on some of these races. I don't know what the result is going to be. I'm still going to give it my all, as I always do, and we'll see how it goes. But hey, appreciate you checking in with me tonight. I just wanted to share this information with you, and we'll see where it goes from here. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great night. God bless.